Good day, everyone. I am Charalanga from BSE English 1A, and we are the group 4. Our topic is about the cry of Pugad Lawin or Balintawak. But first, let us know what is the cry of Pugad Lawin means. So, the cry of Pugad Lawin means it is the beginning of the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish Empire. The cry, defined as that turning point when the Filipinos finally refused Spanish colonial dominion over the Philippine Islands. With tears in their eyes, the people as one man pulled out their cedulas and tore them into pieces. So why did the Filipinos torn their cedula? It's because on August 23, 1896, Andres Bonifacio and a number of Katipuneros tore their cedulas, signifying their protest against Spanish colonial rule. The cedula is a reminder of Spain's tyranny against Filipinos who were branded as Indios during the invaders' 300-year rule. What are the significant events in the first cry? First is the tearing up of community tax certificates. The tearing up of community tax certificates, or cedulas, symbolizes the termination of Katipuneros' loyalty to Spanish regime. Second is the patriotic shouts such as Viva la Independencia Filipina. The shouts for Viva la Independencia Filipina, or Long Live Philippine Independence, was to express the goal of their secret society. Where and when did this happen? Balintawak had always been the site for the cry, recognized by historians and students. This was all in the books in the Philippine history being used in schools. Every August 26, this event was commemorated in this place. But Teodoro Agoncillo stirred the controversy when he said that the event actually happened on August 23, 1896, and not August 26, and the site is Pugad Lawin, not Balintawak. Due to Teodoro Agoncillo's influences, Agoncillo used his considerable influence and campaigned to change the date and venue of the first cry to Pugad Lawin, August 23, 1896. In 1963, President Macapagal ordered that the cry of Balintawak shall be called Cry of Pugad Lawin, and it should be celebrated on August 23 instead of August 26. Dr. Pio Valenzuela was the only eyewitness who accounted that the cry happened in Pugad Lawin and in August 26.
Where did Agoncillo base his claim that the cry happened on August 23, 1896 and in Pugad Lawin? So, the historian Ambeth Ocampo averred that Agoncillo based his claim not on a primary source, but a tertiary or at least a second-generation translation. He wrote that in 1989, after a series of articles on the controversy over Balintawak and Pugad Lawin, I received a batch of photocopied manuscripts with an invitation to the originals of what appeared to be the papers of Bonifacio. Knowing that these were transcribed and printed by Agoncillo in two separate books, I did not bother to decipher Bonifacio's line script. Months later, on a lazy afternoon, I decided to compare the Agoncillo's transcriptions with the Bonifacio's originals. I was surprised to find discrepancies in the text. While Agoncillo reproduced the original sa Tagalog, it proved to be slightly different from the manuscripts. I realized immediately that Agoncillo did not have access to the original Bonifacio papers. He merely translated an English translation of the Bonifacio papers, which were themselves translated from Spanish by Epifanio de los Santos, who possessed the original Tagalog manuscripts. Actually, Agoncillo's claim that the cry happened in Pugad Lawin on August 23, 1896 was based on Pio Valenzuela's account. A photograph showing the latter with the granddaughter of Melchor Aquino named Monica Ramos and other revolutionists stated that place. Pugad Lawin was the site of the General Meeting of the Katipunan on August 23, 1896. In that meeting, it was determined that the fighting against the Spaniards would start and thus the cry marketing start.
Hi, my name is Annalisa Dormeo, and today I'm here to tackle about Arturo Valenzuela, the grandson of Valenzuela. Arturo Valenzuela, in his unpublished work, which was based largely on his grandfather's memoirs, elaborated that the first cry of Balintawak was held on August 23 in the backyard of Tanda Sora's house. Then, they moved to Malanday on August 26, 1896. No Katipuneros in the place. They shot 2 farmers they saw in the place and then reported a cry of Balintawak. Then, this was the reason, according to Valenzuela's grandson, why his grandfather, who was under Spanish interrogation in 1896, referred to the date of the cry as August 26. Valenzuela matched the signed testimony he gives to the Spaniard when he was interrogated. But his memoirs, published by Ritana Wenceslao, stated that the farmer mentioned that the cry happened in Balintawak on August 26. However, his memoirs, which were published after the war, stated that the cry happened in Pugad, Lawin, on August 23, 1896. Thus, the inaccuracy.
Good day, everyone. So for the continuation, the late historian Pedro Galligonia wrote that the controversy among the historians still continues to the present day. So the story, The Cry of Pugad Lawin, cannot be accepted as historically accurate. It's because it lacks positive documentation and supporting evidence from eyewitnesses. Although there's one eyewitness who stated her testimony, which was Dr. Pia Valenzuela, still it is not enough to authenticate and verify controversial issue in history. And the late historian also added that not the politicians and their sycophants should settle this controversy. Instead, it should be the historians and their living participants.
So now let's proceed to the statement of Pio Valenzuela. But first is, I will introduce you who is Pio Valenzuela. Pio Valenzuela is the Filipino physician and the revolutionary leader. At the age of 23, he joined the Society of Katipunan, a movement which sought the independence of the Philippines from Spanish colonial rule and started the Philippine Revolution together with Andres Bonifacio and Emilio Jacinto. They formed a secret chamber of the society called Camararina. He took charge of the publication of Ang Kalayaan, Katipunan's first and only official publication. He was the one who tried to convince the exiled, who's a result, to join the revolutionary movement. The question is, why was Valenzuela account of the cry doubted by historian? Because in many instances when Valenzuela was interviewed, he gave a date of conflicting event of 1896. There are statements and the dates when Valenzuela gave them the following. And September 2 and 3, 1896. This statement is given to the Spanish interrogators. And in the statement of Pio Valenzuela, they remain in Balintawak in the 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. On the next day, September 6, 1896, after he surrendered in Manila, the fight between a Guardia Civil and Pio Valenzuela rebels in Banlat and Balintawak took place on Wednesday, August 26. During that 3 days, prior to that, he was in the company of Andres Bonifacio in a house of Balintawak. She stayed on Andres Bonifacio house after he fight a Guardia Civil. On August 31, 1911, the statements of Pio Valenzuela And the next day of 23 gathered again at Kangkong at the house of Apollinio Samson. And it was debate at this meeting whether or not to continue the rebellion, and Andres Bonifacio and Teodoro Plata clashed for a long time. The majority decided to continue the fight. It was also debate when the rebellion took place, and it was agreed upon, and 23 and 9 will attack in Manila Road. Stamisa will pass by, and the gathering will begin at 5 p.m. in San Juan del Monte, and from there enter Manila in the evening at the time required to enter. This meeting ended at 6 p.m. On the next day, the 24th day, we moved to Pasadilla at the house of Felix Dupa and their Emilio Jacinto wrote from morning to afternoon. Those letters is stating the agreements at the meeting on the 23. On 24, he moved to the village of Pasong Tamo to the house of Aleng Melcora, on the first place of a refuge of Andres Bonifacio.
1930 statement. The first place of refuge of Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, Procopio Bonifacio, Teodoro Plata, Aguido del Rosario, and himself, or Pio Valenzuela, was in Balintawak. The five of them arrived there on August 19 and 20. In 1896, the first place where some 500 members of the Katipunan was the house and yard of Apolonio Samson at Kangkong on August 22. Reviews were only exchanged and no resolution was debated or adopted. It was in the house, storehouse, and yard of Juan Ramos. Juan Ramos is the son of Melchura Aquino. In Pugad, Lawin, that over 1,000 members of the Katipunan met and debated lengthily on August 23, 1896. The discussion was whether or not the revolution against the Spanish government should be started on August 29, 1896. After the tumultuous meeting, many of those present tore their cedulas into pieces, and they shouted, "Long live the Philippines! Long live the Katipunan!"
Because of this conflict statement of Valenzuela, another historian, John in Schumacher, SG, expressed doubt on his credibility. He stated, "I would certainly give much less credence to all accounts coming from Peyo Valenzuela, and to the interpretations Agoncillo got from him verbally, since he gave so much version from the surrendered to the Spanish authorities and made various statements not always compatible with one another up to the time when, as an old man, he was interviewed by Agoncillo." For everybody to know, John in Schumacher was a Filipino Jesuit historian and educator known for his work exploring the Catholic clergy's role in the 1886 Philippine Revolution. In revolutionary clergy, the Filipino clergy, and the nationalist movement in 1850 to 1903. First published in 1981, Schumacher was born in Buffalo, New York. John Schumacher, SG, was also a known historian and one who studied earnestly and appreciated Rizal, and he symbolizes with the emergence of the Philippines nation.
Now let's move to the account of the Filipino revolutions by Antonio Mendoza Guevara, referred to as Matatag. He wrote, "These 2-day companies of Guardia Civils, one of artillery and the other of infantry, scaled the hill coming upon us in the area called Pasong Tamo." So guys, the Battle of Pasong Tamo was a series of short skirmishes shortly after the cry of Balintawak between the remaining Capotineros in Caloocan and the Guardia Civil. So during those 2 days, one is artillery and the other is infantry. So according to my research, artillery refers to a weapons for wars or branch of armed forces that use large caliber guns, while the infantry refers to the ground troops that engage with the enemy in close range. No? So, the fight began at once. The brothers of the Katipunan had among them only 4 ancient locks, which a heavy downpour rendered out of commission in no time. The Caputineros scattered, the enemy troops withdrawing. Thanks to God, we suffered no casualties despite of closely fought skirmish and our being fully armed. This was an account of thick woods, rough terrain, and timely and providential rain that saved us from the Spaniards who outnumbered us and had better arms. So during that time, guys, the number of armed forces of Caputineros is lessened than Guardia Civils or Spaniards. And i-compare sad nato ang ilang kanang weapons, it's obviously nga wala jud silay kanang chance nga mo daog. Kay ang ilang weapons kay bolo lang, while the Spaniards use guns. No? And during that times, ang ilang armed forces kay kanang gamay lang compare sa mga Spaniards. But thankfully, it was a rainy day. No? Na nakatabang sa ilaha aron mo retreat kay wala man sila choice ato nga panahon.
A Guardia Civil, Lieutenant Oligario Diaz, identified the cry to have happened in Balintawak on August 25, 1896. Teodoro Calao, Filipino historian, marks the place to be in Kangkong, Balintawak on the last week of August 1896. Santiago Alvarez, a Kataponero and son of Mariano Alvarez, leader of the Magdiwang faction in Cavite, put the cry in Bahay ni Toro in Quezon City on 24 August 1896. Pio Valenzuela, known Katipunero and privy to many different events concerning the Katipunan, stated that the cry happened in Pugad, Lawin. Pugad, Lawin on 23 August 1896. Historian Gregorio Zaide identified the cry to have happened in Balintawak on August 26, 1896, while Teodoro Valenzuela, researched by historians Milagros Guerrero, Emmanuel Encarnacion, and Ramon Villegas, claimed that the event took place in Tandang Sora's barn in Golod, Quezon City on 24 August 1896. On August 26, a big meeting was held in Balintawak at the house of Apolonio Samson, then Cabeza of the Barrio of Caloocan.
Still on this controversy, Adrian Cristobal wrote, "The official dating and placing of the revolutionary decree is August 23, 1896 in Pugad, Lawin, has been challenged by a new breed of historians, Dr. Milagros C. Guerrero, Ramon N. Villegas, and Emmanuel Encarnacion. The more accurate time and place was 24 of August 1896 at the barn of Melchora Aquino, or also known as Tandang Sora, in what is now Barangay Banlat in Quezon City. Of course, like Agoncillo, the new breed of historians were not there when it happened. But they based their contention on many other sources and on the fact that Pugad Lawin could not be located in the cartography of the period. So, Adrian Cristobal said that the cry of Pugad Lawin, which is August 23, 1896, was challenged or is changed by the new breed of historians, which are Dr. Milagros C. Guerrero, Ramon N. Villegas, and Emmanuel Encarnacion. They said that the more accurate time and place was 24th of August 1896 at the barn of Melchora Aquino, or also known as Tandang Sora. So they were not a witness of the cry, but they based their but they base their contentions or conclusions on many other sources and in the fact that Pugad Lawin could not be located in the cartography of the period.
Ang kinabukasan ng mga susunod na henerasyon ay bahagi ng ating responsibilidad. Tayong mga nauna, tayo na may lakas, tayo na may kakayahang lumaban, tayo makapagbibigay ng kalayaan na nararapat sa kanila. Malaki ang tiwala ko sa iyo, Andres. Bilang ina ng katipunan, pinauubaya ko sa iyo ang desisyon na gawin kung ano ang sa tingin mo ang nararapat.
Napakarami na ang naging biktima ng mga Espanyol. At mas marami pa ang mamamatay kapag hindi natin pinigilan ng kanilang pang-aapi. Sa labanang ito, isusuong natin ang ating mga buhay sa panganib. Ilang araw mula ngayon, sa gabi ng 29, sisimulan na natin ang revolusyon. Ilabas ninyo ang inyong mga sedula! Pagmasdan ninyo ang munting papel na umaalipin sa ating lahat. Katipunan, kailangan na nating wakasan ang 200 taong pananakop ng Espanya. Kulang man tayo sa sandata. Mas malakas man ang baril at kanyon ng mga Kastila. Lalaban tayo hanggang sa huling hininga. Hindi tayo magpapalupig! Tayo ang magtatagumpay. Dahil tayo ang mga anak ng bayan. Tayo ang nagmamay-ari sa lupang ito. Sa atin ang bayan ito. Punitin ang mga sedula nyo! Mabuhay ang katipunan! Mabuhay ang revolusyon!
The cry of Pugad Lawin, or in Filipino, Sigaw ng Pugad Lawin, was the beginning of the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish Empire. At the close of August 1896, members of the Katipunan Secret Society, or the Katipuneros, led by Andres Bonifacio, rose up in revolt somewhere in Caloocan. Wider than the jurisdiction of present-day Caloocan, which may have overlapped into present-day Quezon City. Originally, the term cry referred to the first clash between the Katipuneros and the civil guards. The cry could also refer to the tearing up of community tax certificate and defiance of their allegiance to Spain. The inscription of Viva la Independencia Filipina can also be referred as the term for cry. This was literally accompanied by patriotic shouts. Because of competing account and ambiguity of the place where this event took place, the exact date and place of the cry is in contention. From 1908 until 1963, the official stance was that the cry occurred on August 26 in Balintawak. In 1963, the Philippine government declared a shift to August 23 in Pugad Lawin, Quezon City. The cry of Balintawak occurred on August 26, 1896. The cry defined as the turning point when the Filipino finally refused Spanish colonial domination over the Philippine Islands. With tears in their eyes, The people as one man pulled out their cedulas and tore them into pieces.
Alright, good day again everyone. I'm Francis Pilco and I am here in front of you to discuss about what is actually happened in the cry of Pugad Lawin. Now, I've written here some clues and summarization and I hope you learn something from me. And without further ado, let's proceed. Right, the news of the discovery of the Katipunan shred spread throughout Manila and the suburbs. Bonifacio, informed of the discovery, secretly instructed his runners to summon all the leaders of the society to a general assembly to be held on August 24. They were to meet at Balintawak to discuss the steps to be taken away to meet the crisis. Now, when the time that Bonifacio is informed about the discovery of the Katipunan and spread throughout Manila, he secretly instructed his runners to summon all the leaders of the society to a general assembly which is held on August 24 at Balintawak. Right, and the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the steps to be taken or the solutions to be taken to meet this crisis. Alright, that same night of August 19, Bonifacio, accompanied by his brother Procopio, Emilio Jacinto, Teodoro Plata, and Aguido del Rosario, slipped through the cordon of the Spanish sentries and reached Balintawak before midnight. Alright, these 5 men arrived in Balintawak before midnight, including Supremo or Bonifacio. Alright, Pio Valenzuela followed them on the next day on August 21st. Bonifacio changed the Katipunan code because the Spanish authorities had already dispirited. Alright, for your information, the Katipunan before have their code, and the letters ZLIB, right, were inscribed inside their white ribbons, and they were the Katipunan letter codes, which stood for Anak ng Bayan, or the sons of people. Alright, when the time that Bonifacio is informed that the Katipunan is discovered, he secretly changed the code of the Katipunan for safety against the Spanish authority. Alright, in the afternoon of the same day, the rebels, numbering about 500, left temporarily in Balintawak for Kangkong, where Apollonius Samson, a Katipunero, gave them food and shelter. In the afternoon of August 22, they proceeded to Pugad Lawin. Alright, the following day, in the yard of Juan A. Ramos, the son of Melchora Aquino, who was later called the mother of the Katipunan, Bonifacio asked his men whether they were prepared to fight to a better end. Now, despite the objection of his brother-in-law Teodoro Plata, all assembled agreed to fight to the last. That being the case, alright, Bonifacio said, "Bring out your cedulas and tear them to pieces to symbolize our determination to take up arms." Alright, now, diri nahitabo ang the cry of Pugad Lawin, which is the cry or the call of rebellion. Now, Bonifacio said to them that, "Bring out your cedulas and tear them to pieces to symbolize determination to take up arms, or to symbolize bravery, that they wanted freedom." So now, after that words of Bonifacio, the men obediently tore up their cedulas, shouting, "Long live the Philippines!" Alright, this event marked the so-called cry of Balintawak, which actually happened in Pugad Lawin. So that's all. Thank you so much everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something from us today. And I hope this lesson would make you understand the value of history, and that Philippines is worth fighting for, just like Bonifacio and Katipunans did. That they fight and they sacrifice themselves just to have the freedom that we enjoy right now.
So guys, before we end our report, I just want to share with you this quote from Jack Lehman that says, "Never stop learning, for when we stop learning, we stop growing." So laban lang guys, makagraduate ratang tanan pohon. So thank you everyone for watching and for listening, and God bless us all.